Welcome back. Last week, India and the EU announced a free trade agreement deemed the mother of all deals. And not long after, U.S. President Donald Trump announced tariffs on India will be lowered and the South Asian country would stop purchasing oil from Russia. So here to talk more about the deals is William Pellerin, partner and international trade lawyer at McMillan. It's good to have you join us once again. Thanks so much.
Great being here.
So the deal with the U.S., obviously this was the second deal in as many days that India made. Was this one a surprise to you?
This one did come out of a little bit out of the blue. Now, this is not the same thing as the deal that India struck with the European Union. This is not a full-fledged trade agreement that was signed. This is more about de-escalating the tariffs that were imposed by the president. So this is a little bit of a de-escalation, removing some of those additional tariffs that the U.S. had imposed on India to try to calm things down and bring perhaps India back into the fold of the Western countries, away from Russia, and perhaps even a bit away from China.
Are there any parts of this deal between the U.S. and India that are still kind of unclear at this point to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a critical part of that deal is reducing the tariffs. So the United States reducing the tariffs that it had imposed on India of up to 50%, which is one of the hardest hit countries, in fact. And so the idea is that the tariffs are going to come down to about 18%, giving India a little bit of breathing room and a better situation compared to other countries. But the one part that's still a bit nebulous is this issue of India agreeing to stop oil purchases from Russia. And so that part doesn't seem to have been confirmed yet by India. They did confirm other parts of the agreement. But if that's the case, that indeed India is going to stop purchasing Russian oil, that's a major geopolitical shift because India is really the country keeping part of the Russian economy afloat and a major source of oil purchases from Russia.
And because of that, Donald Trump was saying that this will help to end the war in Ukraine. Is that how you see this kind of going?
It certainly increases the pressure on Russia, whether that's enough to get Russia back to the negotiating table and actually move the needle on getting Putin and Zelensky to reach an agreement is I think a live question. It probably is an incremental step, I would say, towards perhaps getting a little bit more bargaining power on the Putin regime.
When it comes to the deal India inked with the EU, it's been described, I love the description, a monster-free trade agreement. What do you make of this deal, first of all?
So that's a real free trade agreement. That is perhaps the largest concession that India has ever provided to other countries. This is a major removal of all tariffs for the future. So this is something very different than, imposing tariffs like the U.S. did and then scaling them back. This is a full-fledged trade agreement between the EU and India. Canada still doesn't have an agreement with India of this type. And so it really gives EU exporters a bit of a leg up. They're really the first to sign a comprehensive deal with India. This will mean that EU exporters, for example, in the auto sector, in the wine sector, a number of other sectors are going to really have free pass at the Indian market and able to really develop their exports, frankly, in a way that all countries are trying to do now, particularly given the impetus to diversify trade away from the United States.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, right? Like some experts have suggested that this trade deal, at least between the EU and India, was because of these tariffs. Everyone's trying to diversify and look to other partners. We know, as you mentioned, Canada, Mark Carney is going to India in March. I mean, can we expect a deal between Canada and India potentially?
I think we're probably not quite at the deal announcement stage, though things are moving quite quickly. A free trade agreement like this the negotiations would have started a long time ago. This is not something that happens in a matter of months. These are multiple year processes. Normally, these free trade agreement negotiations, there's formal rounds of negotiations in each country. So I suspect this got started many years ago even, but probably reached a finish line a lot quicker than folks might have expected because of that need to diversify. So I think what Canada might do I doubt that we'll be at the place of announcing the conclusion of the deal, perhaps if things get fast-tracked, but otherwise it'll be a good progress, barometer of progress between the countries.
So, okay, so then that's kind of what you expect when it comes to Canada and India meeting. I mean, relations have been frosty over the last decade or so, particularly in the last couple of years. Is this just kind of like a warming of relations?
Yeah, I think it's more like that. So Canada and India were actually in the midst of a free trade agreement negotiation a number of years ago, and for all the political reasons that you're referring to, those negotiations broke off. So we're kind of getting back into the groove of things, rejoining those negotiations, and engaging with those formal rounds. Having the negotiators on both sides. So I think that at this point, it'll be a really good signal that we might be able to get to the finish line on a deal, but I doubt it'll be about signing the deal at that point.
It's kind of like where Mark Carney stood when he went to China, right? Like there's a fine line to walk in terms of warming relations with that country, but also keeping the U.S. happy. Of course, I'm sure Canada is thinking about this free trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico, the review coming up in the summer when dealing with countries like India or China.
I agree. I mean, ultimately, the Prime Minister's speech at Davos, to go back to it, is all about diversifying and having options for middle power countries like Canada. I mean, the Canada-India relationship is obviously a complex one, but from a commercial perspective, an economic perspective, is frankly way underdeveloped. The amount of trade between Canada and India is far too low for the size of our economies. And Canada has always needed to diversify and to bring more trade to India and agricultural commodities and technology. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there to improve. So this certainly makes sense as one of those places to start.
Okay, really interesting stuff. We'll have to leave it there. William Pellerin, international trade lawyer at McMillan. Appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.